I'd like to welcome you to another Index and Transformation seminar. We're very pleased to have Professor Jan-Bart Gewald with us. He's currently at STIAS doing a fascinating project on Kimberley, which we will tell you more about. First, we will get the paper, and then we'll later discuss the broader project, the new project. So, Professor Gewald is a historian who specializes, I couldn't print this out, so I'm trying to read this, specializes in the social history of Africa, is a professor of African history at Leiden University, and for many years was director of the African Studies Center at Leiden. For how many years? Decades.
Too many years.
Decades.
Nearly.
That's right. We rescued you from that.
Thank you.
And the research, his research covers, I mean, so many issues here. And genocide in Rwanda and Namibia, sociocultural parameters of trans-desert trade in Africa. He's also conducted research on Pan-Africanism in Ghana, spirit possession in the Republic of Niger, Dutch development cooperation, Africa in the context of globalization, and social history in Eritrea. I mean, it makes me feel very parochial. You know, I've done research in South Africa and Zimbabwe.
I'm extremely superficial.
No, definitely not. In the past 15 years, the research focus has been on the socio-cultural history of Central Africa, and recently he's got very interested in the animal turn, ontological turn, and working on issues of multi-species, ethnography, history. So for many of us, that's also fascinating, and we're looking forward to hearing more about that. He has a background in geology, and his father was a geologist, which explains his interest in diamond mining. And it's quite extraordinary hearing him talk about that. So the talk is, you know, I could go on and on, but I'm going to leave it there because we will have a 40 to 50 minute presentation and then about an hour of discussion. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know it's nearly the end of the academic year for all of you. I know that for the more senior academics amongst you, you stuck up to your eyeballs in marking papers, so I really appreciate you being present. I want to thank Stephen for inviting me to give a presentation here, and I'd like to thank STIAS for taking the time and the trouble to bother giving me a 5 months fellowship here in Stellenbosch. It's been absolutely amazing. I don't know if none of you, if you ever get the chance to get a fellowship at STIAS, please go and do it. It's literally an academic's Valhalla. If I die, that's where I will go to. Just the fact that you get treated with respect is something that I really enjoy, and you get the chance to start thinking. And I'm really fortunate in that the time that I've had here at STIAS and in Stellenbosch, I've been able to start thinking again. And as director of the African Studies Center in Leiden, that was something that was completely gone. I was just sort of like rushing from one crisis to the next crisis and then thinking, yes, I was doing things, but I wasn't thinking anymore. And towards the end of 2020, I started basically trying to get rid of my position as being in charge of the Africa Studies Center and started thinking about other things that might be of interest. So in July of 2020, my wife was reading a book, a novel about Kimberley, and I thought to myself, that's a nice place, you know, that's really, you know, in Afrikaans is die groot gat, and it's like, it's the end of the world. Nobody does any research on the place. I mean, people did research on the place in the past, and I thought, well, let me try and develop a research interest on Kimberley. And I started because I realized, yeah, okay, people have written about labor and capital in Kimberley. So there are really good books about labor and capital in Kimberley, and I thought, well, that's not really something that I should go and do again. And then I thought to myself, the big hole actually reminds me of the atomic blast at Bikini Atoll. There's just the famous photograph, 1946, the atomic blast at Bikini Atoll. Is this huge pillar of water rising up into the air. The pillar is about 1 kilometer across, and there's just radioactive material. This radioactive material comes down on Bikini Atoll, and Bikini Atoll, for as long as humankind is going to be on planet Earth, is contaminated. And I thought to myself, actually the big hole is exactly the same, but it's a much longer and slower process. Without the diamonds of Kimberley, South Africa would not have had an industrial mining revolution. And it's not just the industrial mining revolution, but there's also the enormous environmental impact. So within 15 years of the first diamonds being discovered at Kimberley, all trees within a radius of 250 kilometers were gone. So all the trees up into Ramatlabana in southern Botswana were gone. Trees were being sourced from Tsitsikamma, Knysna, from the Cederberg, and later from Bulozi in western Zambia. And not only that, there were just thousands upon thousands of animals being used, not just as labor, but also as food. So these are the things that I was thinking about. So I was thinking about an environmental history, I was thinking about a multi-species history, and I drafted a proposal and I submitted it to Stias, and Stias said, yeah, that's okay, come along. But it was in the course of drafting this proposal that I did a Google search. We all do Google searches, and we get a topic and we'll quickly Google it quickly, and then we'll try and develop that into something academic later on. And I Googled something along the lines of, quote, environmental impact diamonds Kimberley, end quote. And I came across an environmental impact assessment report, which had been prepared for a company named Mystic Pearl 157 Pty Limited. And the report bore the incredibly long and convoluted title, quote, Ecological Specialist Study for the proposed Mystic Pearl 157 Pty Limited Diamond Mine Project on Portion 1 of Farm Vooruitzicht 81 and concurrent development of Ottoskopje Diamond Mine, Kimberley District, Northern Cape Province, end quote. So Ottoskopje is a mine to the north of the big hole in Kimberley. Now the report referred to Ottoskopje and stated, Mystic Pearl owns 100% of Ottoskopje, and the company is 64% owned and driven by Gilmar Corporation. Now, I'd never heard of Ottoskopje. I don't think any of you here in the room has heard of Ottoskopje. I'd be very impressed if you had. And I hadn't heard of Mystic Pearl or the Gilmar Corporation. And an online search for Ottoskopje threw up share certificates from the 1890s for Ottoskopje Diamond Mines Limited. These had been put up for sale on internet for collectors. Now, clearly, these shares could not be the diamond mining company that had commissioned the environmental assessment report. But it was obvious that these certificates referred to a diamond mine that had existed in the past, the history of which had been largely forgotten and eclipsed by the Big Hole and the consolidated diamond mines established by Cecil John Rhodes. Unfortunately, the same search also brought to light an online discussion thread on a website called whirlpool.net. Now, this is a website that caters for amateur investors on the Australian Stock Exchange. And there, a particular person who gave himself the name Reggie Perth had initiated an online discussion in an effort to recoup his investment of $250,000. And in his words, quote, "I have started this thread to see if I can locate any other investors in Gilmar. Gilmar claim that they have a diamond mine in South Africa and that they are listing on their AIM in London. From all the research I have done, Gilmar is not the owner of the mine, is not listing on AIM, and is trading whilst insolvent." Now, apart from roasting Reggie Perth, the online thread mentioned a website for the Gilmar Corporation, www.gilmarcorp.net. Unfortunately, in attempting to access this internet address, I came upon a dead end with the standard formulation, "This site can't be reached. Check if there is a typo in www.gilmarcorp.net. Thankfully, my search engine also referred me to an Instagram account with some or other something that called itself the Gilmar Corporation. And after having established an Instagram account of my own, I was able to access the account. Now, the Gilmar Corp Instagram account draws attention to the Gilmar Corporation and cites the defunct website address stating, quote, "Gilmar is driving the development of Otto's kimberlite diamond deposit in Kimberley." The Instagram account consists of 7 posts and is essentially a marketing teaser for a diamond mine that is allegedly being established in Kimberley, South Africa. The 7 posts consist of a stock photograph of rough diamonds, 2 photocopies of diamond mining at Ostensibly, taken from an illustrated magazine of the early 1900s, 3 screenshots taken off the obsolete Gilmar Corporation website, the website that I wasn't able to get hold of, and a map of Southern Africa with a subscript, "Ostensibly diamond mine is located in the town of Kimberley in the Northern Cape province of South Africa." Now, each one of the posts has but one single like, and I'm sure there are people in this room who know about Instagram. That's not very popular. The posts were posted in a 3-week period between 21 April 2016 and 13 May 2016. And the first 5 posts have been liked by somebody or something calling itself Cigar Banker. And the last 2 have been liked by something calling itself Stitch_Press. Now, Cigar Banker appears to be no more than a fictive bot account powered by algorithms that have posted 514 stylishly taken photographs of big, fat, chunky cigars in scenic settings of harbors, sunsets, and long drinks. Although the truth must be told that in the midst of all the cigars and sunsets, there is one single, rather incongruous photograph of a water buffalo. And that links you to clmvt.go, which describes itself as an information technology company that is based in Hong Kong. Now, it could be that cigar banker is a moniker for an existing person, somebody like Reggie Perth, who invested in the Gilmore Corporation. Stitch press, for that matter, is a legitimate concern that specializes in designing and creating office stationery. On their corporate website, they describe themselves and state, quote, Stitch Press specializes in creative, elevated quality and designs, printing fine foil press, blah, 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 etc., 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 etc. Whether you're a couple celebrating your special day, a corporate business looking to rebrand, or an individual looking for designs and printing services, we would love to hear about your project. So please say hello, end quote. Now, given the services that Stitch Press renders, it is probable that Stitch Press designed and created the logo, visiting cards, stationery, and the like for Gilmore Corporation. The Instagram account for Gilmore Corporation is followed by 4 followers and follows 3 accounts. Apart from Cigar Banker, the account is followed by nwright_92, Aaron McPollen, and Zuzagina. nwright_92 appears to be a genuine site of a man who, on the basis of his posted photographs and comments, lives in England and is interested in attack dogs, party drugs, fast cars, trucking, and fishing. Aaron McPollen is the Instagram account for Aaron McPollen, a self-declared, quote, fine art photographer and videographer, end quote, who is based in Perth, Australia, with a proclivity on the basis of his Instagram account for the female form in bondage. Zuzagina is an account without a single post, but with 212 followers and following 192 accounts, the bulk of which are situated in Western Australia. Now, the Gilmore Corporation Instagram account itself follows 3 other accounts, all 3 of which are related to weddings and wedding arrangements in Perth. Now, this is supposed to be a mining company, okay? Your alarm bell should be ringing in your head if you are going to be investing in a mining company and it follows accounts of weddings and wedding arrangements in Perth, Western Australia. Namely, a bridal veil company, a specialist printer, and a wedding caterer. The last post on the Gilmore Corporation Instagram account was done on the 13th of May, 2016. In a post of 30 April 2016, the Gilmore Corporation Instagram account makes mention of a Twitter account. Quote, Gilmore Corp, did you know that we are also on Twitter? Head on over and join the conversation. Now, the Gilmar Corporation Twitter account is as intriguing as its Instagram account and lists a sum total of 6 tweets posted between 22 April 2016 and 13 May 2016, the same date range as that of the Instagram account. The account follows 29 Twitter accounts and has 4 followers. The account notes, quote, Gilmar Corporation is driving the development of ostensibly kimberlite diamond deposit in Kimberley, South Africa, end quote. And is linked to a hyperlink for the website which no longer exists, www.gilmarcorp.net. That's the defunct website that I referred to earlier on. Now, of the 4 followers, one is attributed to a person who uses the nom de plume Harl E. Quinn. Harlequin. So Harlequin in Afrikaans, jester in English, or a jester basically. In total, this trickster has posted a total of 4 tweets in a 2-day period between the 22nd and the 23rd of April 2016. 3 of the tweets are retweets of the Gilmar Corporation Twitter account, all tweeted within 5 minutes of one another. So Gilmar would tweet, and then within 5 minutes, Harlequin would tweet the same thing, retweeted. Now, all 3 of the tweets are retweets of the Gilmar Corporation account and one of a jewelry fashion magazine account, accompanied by a risque photograph of pouted lips and choker chains. The 3 Gilmar Corporation retweets are all fashioned in such a manner as to hype the tweets of the original account. So when Harlequin retweets Gilmar, there'll be a tag there, something along the lines of fantastic, terrific. You know, you'd be stupid not to be investing in this. So the highlight is a comment, nice size to find, placed next to an archival stock photograph referencing a mammoth yellow diamond find of 336 carats at Ottoskopje mine in Kimberley in 1902. Now, just to bear in mind, the bulk of diamonds found are about this size. 336 is at least that size. So, but the implication is that this is what Gilmar Corporation is finding. Nice size to find, yeah, it certainly was, but that was in 1902 and not in 2016. 3 of the 6 Gilmar Corporation Twitter account retweets are tweeted within 5 minutes of one another on the 22nd of April 2016. And within an hour of these tweets were embellished and retweeted by Harlequin. The 3 remaining tweets were posted in May. Sorry, I have to try and keep up with different paper and stuff here. The 3 remaining tweets were posted in May, with 2 being posted at exactly the same time and purporting to show the location of the mine by means of a Google Earth satellite capture dated to the 11th of August 2015. Now, I don't know if you can see it properly, but Kimberley has a huge township called Galeshewe Township. And Ottoskopje is slap bang in the middle of Galeshewe Township. And we'll get to that later on. This is used in the conning of the people who invest in the company. I say alleged conning, but you know, this is photographs from Google Earth. I've been here a number of times, but these are photographs that any person can find on Google Earth. So if you were to go and look for this mine being developed here, this is what you find. The mine location is indicated as being slap bang in the middle of Galeshewe Township in Kimberley. The fact that the actual site of the historical mine, Ottoskopje, is situated in Galeshewe is crucial to the scam. but a little bit more on that later. The final tweet posted by the Gilmore Corporation account was posted on the 13th of May, 2016, retweeted at once by an unidentifiable account and liked by 5 accounts, one of which is also unidentifiable. So of the 4 accounts that remain, one appears to be linked to a sports fan in Western Australia. And 3 bear the names Victoria Graham, Heather Skinner, and Donna Taylor, which as a click on the links indicates are algorithm-driven bots advertising pornography. And to my surprise, a link to the Gilmore Corporation also turned up in the online database dealing with the Panama Papers. This thing says it's going to have an automatic reset. We'll start it. Let me just shut this down. Sorry, it's not my laptop, but the laptop is threatening to close down. So we'll see how things go. Okay, so you will have heard of the Panama Papers. Who has not heard of the Panama Papers? You haven't heard of the Panama Papers?
I don't know what they are.
Everybody else has heard of the Panama Papers? Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. In this, the Gilmore Corp, so the Panama Papers, linked to the Panama Papers. Now, the Panama Papers are basically papers which relate to Mosfan managers. Mosfan was a company which existed in Panama. And if you were wealthy, say you were a government minister in an unspecified country, and you had lots of money and you wanted to make sure that you would not be taxed, then you would put their money with them, and then they would basically shift it around, and then it would end up somewhere very safe that you would know about. But then thankfully some whistleblower basically put all of this material available on web, and it's been, you can just search through it. So if you're any of you interested in mining companies, a short typing in of a mining company name throws up tons of interesting information about tax dodges, tax scams, and where companies are registered and so forth. So the Gilmore Corporation, unfortunately this is not that great, but anyway, the Gilmore Corporation is shown to be linked to Mosfan Managers Limited. These are the guys who then make sure that your money disappears off the radar. The Fraternity Fellowship, I do not know what that is, and the Gilmore Corporation. The database indicated the address of the Gilmore Corporation to be an address in the Seychelles. And then it lists the address as that of Mosfan Managers Limited to be an address in the Bahamas, and the address of the Fraternity Fellowship to have an address in the Bahamas, in Panama, sorry. In addition, the database indicated that the Gilmore Corporation consists of 2 entities. So the Gilmore Corporation itself is split up into 2, one registered in the Bahamas and one in the Seychelles, both of which are linked to a man called Craig Willis. In addition, Craig Willis is connected to Renford Consultants, who have an address in the British Virgin Islands. And Renford Consultants is in turn linked to an entity known as GEARC Investments Pty Limited. So GEARC here Brentford, yeah. Now, you are all well above average in intelligence. When you see GIARC, what do you see? GIARC. Who does crosswords? It's Craig. It's an anagram of Craig Willis. Yes, it's an. Congratulations, great. In which it will be noted that GIARC is an anagram of Craig, as in Craig Willis, but more about that later. Now, let me try and go forward a little bit. The registered addresses of the various entities described above are all in a variety of tax havens around the world. The Bahamas, Panama, the British Virgin Islands, and so forth. And that the registered addresses of these entities, you could read this to indicate the intent to defraud, or at least mislead prying eyes. But it is the fact that these entities are linked to Mossack Fonseca via Mosfon Managers Limited that clinches the suspicions that one might have. Mossack Fonseca was a Panamanian law firm and corporate service provider which acted for approximately 300,000 firms prior to an enormous data leak and disclosure to the press that became known as the Panama Papers. Specifically, Mossack Fonseca provided offshore financial services for its clients to ensure that these would not have to pay taxes. The company is implicated in money laundering, creating tax havens, and the corruption of no less than 150. It's a problem when you deal with these kind of numbers. Everything just sort of just becomes factors, tens, thousands, doesn't matter. 150 politicians around the globe. And currently, there is an international arrest warrant issued in Cologne, Germany, for the company founders, the Panamanian Ramon Fonseca and the German-born Jürgen Mossack, on charges relating to tax evasion and forming a criminal organization. Now, what's interesting about all this is that after the Panama Papers, we won't go into all of this, but this just shows you can follow through and click through on all of these things. It's really well worth doing. Anybody trying to follow money traces, it's really well worth doing. But what's interesting is it also pops up in the Panama Papers. Not in the Panama Papers, in the Paradise Papers. And the Paradise Papers were released last year. I don't know if you picked up on that, but the Paradise Papers is a little bit smaller than the Panama Papers, but one of the presidents of the Republic of South Africa was also linked to that. And in this, Craig Willis features once again. Now, continuing to research the Gilmar Corporation in relation to the Panama Papers, I unearthed a website on which individuals can post documents, and they are called slideshare.net. And on this website, a duped investor had posted a variety of documents that related directly to the Gilmar Corporation, Otoskopje Mystic Pearl Gilmar Corp. And this bore within it further data. The posted documents included letters sent by Gilmar Corporation, a full copy of a loan agreement between an individual and Gilmar Corporation, as well as the names and addresses of some of those involved in the scam. And this is really interesting because this is the poor sod who gets defrauded. Trent Kenneth, and his name is illegible. His handwriting is also equally illegible, so that's great. And this is the person who signed for the Gilmar Corporation. And the person who signed for the Gilmar Corporation is Jacqueline Perez. And she was one of the many secretaries who worked for Mossack Fonseca, basically just signing off documents. So this poor sod then transferred his money to Jacqueline Perez and then tried to get his money back. A letter written on the Gilmar Corporation letterhead and dated the 31st of May 2017 lists an address of the Gilmar Corporation in the Republic of Seychelles. Now those of you who have been to school will know that you don't spell Seychelles with an S after the Y. A Google Earth satellite and street view search of the address showing the Gilmar Corporation throws the Gilmar Corporation as being housed in a nondescript multi-story office building in downtown Victoria on the island of Mahé in the Republic of the Seychelles. And a simple online search indicates that the address housed offices of Mossack Fonseca. A further slide on SlideShare indicates that in terms of the International Business Companies Act of the Republic of the Seychelles, Gilmar Corporation was struck off the register of international business companies before the 30th of January 2017. That is, in other words, that letter earlier on was written 5 months after Gilmar Corporation officially didn't exist anymore. Another point is that in terms of international law and in terms of business law, in the Seychelles, the entity known as the Gilmar Corporation, that entity that took all the money, no longer exists. And yet, in terms of a number of websites dealing with mining equipment, yes, as a historian, you have a great time digging around various things. In terms of websites dealing with mining equipment, Gilmar Corporation continues to be listed as a junior mining company. And this is probably because junior mining companies, both legitimate and not, are able to buy advertising space in large international conferences and trade fairs that relate to mining. As such, Gilmar Corporation was listed as a participant in the, quote, Investing in African Mining Indaba, which was held in Cape Town, South Africa, from the 6th to the 9th of February 2017. You'll see Gilmar here. Officially, Gilmar doesn't exist, but they have a stand at the mining Indaba. Now, this is a listing which obviously leads credence or credence. What is credence or credence? Either or either. Leads credence to the existence of this thing. So, what about the other company? This company which exists in South Africa, Mystic Pearl. Now, a web search of Mystic Pearl throws up, there's a website called b2bhint.com, which basically has listings of companies in the world, which is useful if you are trying to invest in a company. You Google and you find out. And it shows up Mystic Pearl of 157 as registered in Rhodesdean in Kimberley on 32 Carter's Road. Anybody here from Kimberley itself? No, okay. If you did see that, then you'd know something. But anyway, and it has various people who are involved. Richard John Patrick Griffin, Kenneth Lloyd Matthews, Justin Crosley, Douglas Vivian Spindley, and Craig Stephen Willis, our good friend from the Panama Papers. Now, Kenneth Lloyd Matthews is then involved in a whole bunch of companies which are inactive, and he's active in a couple of companies. And this is Justin Crosley. Justin Crosley is also active in some of these companies, and what I've been doing is I've been basically getting this information together and creating databases that link with one another so that I can find out where these people are and in which companies they invest. And it's very interesting because you can then follow people through time. They'll be in this company, and then they'll be registered there and there, and then they'll be in that company there and there, and there's sort of the same faces come together, not always in the same configuration, but they often come back together again. These are companies related. That's what I meant. Unfortunately, it is decided to. It's on a memory stick. No, it's just restarting the system. Anyway, the point is that you keep coming across various people in various situations, and I don't know how to reboot this thing. It's not my laptop. It's a company laptop.
Yes.
Thank you. Should we take a slight break?
No, we will not take a break because then everybody pisses off and thinks, bugger this. No. Okay.
No, we all stay. Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is that in South Africa, ekskuus tog, ek wil probeer onderrig gee. In South Africa, what I hadn't realized is that you can buy companies. You can basically go to lawyers, and it saves you from the trouble of establishing a company. So lawyer number one will have a company called Mystic Pearl through to Mystic Pearl number 200, and you can buy that company, and it's already registered, so you don't have to worry about that. So you buy the shell company, and then you do various things with this company. So you buy Mystic Pearl 158 and establish a hairdresser, or you buy Mystic Pearl 159 and establish a deep level mining company, or you buy Mystic Pearl 160 and open a sushi restaurant, something like that. And these companies, which are shell companies, are completely legal in this country, and they are then used by people who try to develop things in the country. So, for instance, let me just pick on some poor sod here, if Sabine has a prospect in the Northern Cape, which she wants to try and sell to another mining company, she can buy Mystic Pearl 161 and say, look, I've got a mining company. It's registered, it's here, it's on paper, everything. And she will commission an environmental report. And this environmental report and an archaeological report and a water report will then be placed on this website of the Department of Mines and Energy. So you don't even have to have a real company, but you can commission these reports. So your in total investment will probably be around $10,000 US. These reports are on the government website of the Republic of South Africa, and you use these reports to con people. You can say, look, I've got this great mine. I know it's called Mystic Pearl 161, but you don't have to believe me. Just take a look at the website of the government of South Africa, Department of Mines and Energy. Look there and you'll see we have commissioned research reports and so forth. And thank you so much.
There you go.
Just as,
Sorry, guys.
no, you don't have to say sorry. You're doing really well.
Here we go.
All the way down. Keep on going down. And just slideshow. Okay. That's it about the slideshow. Current slide. Thank you so much.
Oh, wait.
So, Anthea can set up a company, Mystic Pearl 162, and if she commissions reports, these reports end up on the website of the government. These reports are downloadable. And you're in Australia, and you say, look, you know, we've got this company. But the big problem with this company is that our mine is slap bang in the middle of a township. And you know what South Africa's like. You don't have to say anything else. People immediately have ideas about what South Africa's like. But don't worry, because your investment, your money, your 250,000, your 50,000, or your 1 million, or your 2 million, will be using that to create security fencing around the mine. So, you know, we haven't got the mine up and running yet, but you're a really early investor, so don't worry, because you know, you're going to be getting the money in so big. Because this mine, look, in 1902, we found 336 carats. Do you know how big that is? This thing is doing all kinds of things. Anyway, do you know how big that is? And then you pay into a company that you think is registered in Australia, but is actually registered in the Seychelles. And the money is immediately transferred from the Seychelles through to Monaco, and then from Monaco to the Bahamas. So your money is gone. The company ceases to exist in the Seychelles. And the Seychelles government says, yeah, there was a company called such and such, such and such, but it doesn't exist anymore. We don't know where these guys are. Now, one of the places where national pride trading, which is associated with a man called Ken Lloyd Matthews, who was deeply involved in Mystic Pearl 157, its trading address is the Halfway House Hotel in Kimberley. So if you know Kimberley, this is one of the places where you can go and get drunk. And Kenneth Lloyd Matthews is actually the grandson of Z.K. Matthews, one of the people who established the African National Congress. Anyway, that's my presentation. It's all very much work in progress. It's rough. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm a historian. And you are guinea pigs. So thank you very much for taking the time and listening.
Thanks very much for that. Okay, so there's a lot to think about in terms of, perhaps you want to say something about how this fits into the larger project?
No, well, I mean, I want to give please say sorry, first of all, to the young ladies at the back there. I didn't mean to pick you out immediately and insult you. And just, you know, when you're giving a lecture, you're pretty hyped up. And then when something happens, you sort of think, fuck, pay attention, I'm trying to talk to you. So I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. So please accept my apologies for that. What I wanted to say is that I started off this research because I was interested in environmental history. And it was my Google search for the impact of mining, the environmental impact of mining, that then got me to the Department of Mines and Energy. And that's where I found these commissioned reports from mining companies, which you think to yourself, that's not possible. Look, you know, De Beers has been mining in Kimberley from 1870 up until 2008. Do you really think that they are going to leave a massive diamond mine behind. This is probably the most prospected place on planet Earth. No ways would they abandon that. So that's how I started getting thinking about this. Yeah.
Thanks very much. So let's take a round of 3 to 4 questions or comments. I mean, I think this is so much to think about in relation to mining capital, from when it began till now, and the devastation to environment is only one part of the picture. Yes, Albert, and then Susie, we'll go to the rest. Yeah, we'll take 3 or 4 at a time.
Thanks, Jan-Bart. I was most impressed by the way you placed this. Earlier this week, I attended a conference on data in history, and it's my first exposure to how data sets can lead to an additional understanding, not a sole understanding, an additional understanding of history, and along with that, certain insights which may not otherwise be available. But it's the first time I've come across an historian who's done that in-depth research in terms of what we managed to find on the internet. The question that arises from that, somebody's been working on historical documents for far too long, and that is that one tends to run the documents against the grain somewhere along the way as part of your normal kind of historical thinking. Is there a way in which one can run this against the grain, or is it out there and there's no way of disputing it? That is what you've got there, these things all answer yes. They're never likely to answer no.
Do you want to take a couple more and then respond?
A quick one on this one. You always have to be critical. You have to be a historian, an academic. So, for instance, this thing has to be run against the grain. This letter exists. I've seen more copies of this letter. It purports to be from a company which purports to be in the Seychelles in this letter. So you have to read against the grain. And you see a spelling mistake like this, you would do the same with a document from the Cape Colony or from somewhere else. So you have to be critical. Exactly the same with addresses. I mean, you have to find out where these places are. So exactly the same. So if you were to be doing a history of mining in the 1860s in South Africa, and you would see an address, 34 Guildhall Road, Central London, and you would discover there is no Guildhall Road, you would say, hey, there's something fishing here. And the same with Mystic Pearl being registered at the Halfway Hotel. So you have the same skill set that you would still continue using. The data set from the Panama Papers, the Mossack Fonseca data set, the interesting thing about this, it allows you to go back to the original documents. So it allows you to go to the PDFs. So the PDFs are copies, or scanned copies. So you can go all the way back. So when you see, for instance, Jacqueline Perez, you can find the documents that she has signed. So it's that, in that sense, it's you can go back to the original documents.
Susie, and can people introduce themselves?
Oh, I'm Susie King, and I'm a retired historian. No, I just don't feel very sorry for the chap who lost his money. I mean, because he didn't do, it seems, the most cursory research. Like tough luck, but that's what happens if you give your money away too easily. Don't you think?
Well,
let's take a couple more.
Okay.
We've got so many questions. Okay. Yes, Lisa, Bernard, Sabine. Yeah. Anybody else? We've got time, so if you want to do 3 or 4, let us know, then we'll do the rest next round. Okay.
So it's Lisa.
I'm Lisa. I'm a recently finished honors student. Thank you. So I have 2 questions. One is just for my own curiosity. Where is Craig now? What is he doing? And do you perhaps have any thoughts on oversight and how this all can be better regulated? It seems quite easy in a way to go very much undetected. And I also did really enjoy your digital sleuthing. It was very fun to be a part of that process.
I enjoyed it as well. Setting up a Twitter account and an Instagram account was good fun. Didn't do a TikTok, but
Can I take a couple?
Sure.
Okay, Eva, let's go around. So you go, Eva, next.
Okay. Mine is not so much a brilliant question, but with the websites the kind of string of websites that were attached. I mean, as far as I know, to create a website, you have to buy a domain. So is that what they did in essence? And would you be able to trace that? I wonder.
it's a nice one. Thank you.
Okay, and Sabine, sorry, then we'll go around.
Yes, I was really a colleague of Jan-Bart Gewald, but I think thanks to Jan-Bart, fantastic. Reminds me, of course, of all the things we've talked about since BX and the anthropologists working on that, also these bigger schemes in the geo world. From the questions I have is, you mentioned that you can just buy a company and then you can have these reports, right? So the environmental assessment reports. But these reports in themselves have the pretense of checking, right? That is, so they are created by companies that also have to show that they have valid knowledge. Right? So I was wondering, did you pry into that direction? Who's making these reports and how can they be so far removed from what is happening, given that they have to prove that they do the job?
Okay, and I want to answer
Now
the
you want to
questions,
answer.
please.
Okay, so the rest will be the next round.
Well, Susie, you're not sorry for the poor sod who invested. The point is that if I read about the scams and the way people are scammed and have been scammed with Mystic Pearl, it's really sickening. And I mean, the person, the first, Reggie Perth, was scammed by people he was playing rugby with. And he invited them to his wedding. And I mean, that's sort of, it's just so deep, you know. But the money you can make, I mean, the money you make. Okay, so you've got $10,000 that you've paid for impact assessment reports, and then say another 10,000 for creating websites and that sort of stuff. And then just, you know, it's just millions of bucks you get in.
Can I just back up my points? Sorry, I didn't do that. Well, I mean, the question is, you have, what, you know, whether it's 10,000 rand or 100,000 rand, if you invest an amount that you don't want to lose, you better do your due diligence. Clearly, this person didn't. And it happens all the time. South Africa's especially.
Yeah.
So, you know, frankly, if one is that careless, it's a lesson.
But
Sorry.
okay, then to Lisa's question about where's Craig Willis now, this actually links back into Susie's question as well, because Craig Willis is now CEO of another mining company, which is calling for investment. And you can track various people in the mining business. You can track them from which company to which company they go. And then it was struck, because you ask about better regulation, that there's a problem, there's a big problem with companies, is that a company is not the person. So Lisa Mayberg can establish a company, and that company can go up into the sky with its shares, and then she can withdraw from the company, take her money, and then the company can collapse and go bankrupt. It doesn't mean that Lisa Mayberg is bankrupted or anything like that. And she can move on to the next company, she can move on to the next company, she can move on to... And then I realized, you know, as a historian, I'm in the wrong business if I wanted to make money. Because there are particular people who are known in the market for being able to get your share prices up into the sky. And a lot of mining companies are not in the business for mining, but they are there to get their share prices up. And you get your share prices up, your stockholders are happy, and some of the poor sods who happen to be real geologists or real field officers working for these companies are left with eggs splattered all over their face. And I'm going to be interviewing one of these geologists in a few weeks' time, whose CV is very interesting. His CV lists every single company he's worked for, except for this time when he was working at Mystic Pearl. And this is a person who was working to the best of intentions, but got egg all over his face. To be able to buy a company, to be able to buy reports, the thing is that the reports, these impact assessments, are the real thing. They aren't bullshit. So I've been looking at the various people. So I've looked at the archaeological impact assessment, I've looked at the water impact assessment, and I've looked at the environmental impact assessment. These are done by professionals who have, you know, they get a contract, so say, well, write an environmental impact assessment of my mine, Mystic Pearl. In your case, it was 161. Of my mine, Mystic Pearl 161. The person does the impact assessment, writes up everything, and submits it, gets his money, and then the report gets put onto the website. So that's, these people are not in any way crooked. The people who write the reports, they're not in any way crooked. And I don't think that all the South Africans were crooked. I think they were trying to get something running and were taken for a ride by people in Australia. The websites and needing to buy a domain, that's a very good point, because that would allow me to register, because when you do buy domains, you also have to register. Then you can find that out. But I know who it is. So yeah, but that's, oh yeah, one little thing, Stitch Presses is owned by a person who is a partner of one of the players. So.
Claire, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, it's not really well formulated comment, but it's really fascinating, I think, the methodology of sort of just starting with something and then almost forensic, like tracing these connections, corporate networks, either real or not real, right? And of course, it has ripples for understanding. So I'm a lecturer in this department in sociology, and my research is on the Maritime Commission of Inquiry. So also been doing some work in platinum mining. And of course, what came out also in the wake of the Maritime Massacre and the Commission of Inquiry was that London Mine was also ciphering off millions to subsidiary companies in tax havens in Bermuda. And so the idea that your research is that, okay, well, this is a fake company, it doesn't exist, but this is also happening in real companies on the current stock exchange, which are sort of at the face of South Africa's development path, right? So, and I think the research that's coming out now through Unique Frontiers doing all this work on the corporate networks, to dislodge this idea that the corporate sector is devoid, you know, all the corruption is in the public sector, right? And it's in politics, particularly the post-apartheid dispensation, and really tracing the connection between these corporations and the state long before, and probably very much connected to these mining companies back long before the transition. And another point that I want to make is, when I was doing my PhD, you know, you do all these side hustles to try and get by. And one of the jobs that I did was for actually a political risk analysis company, which does basically processing reports for citizenship by investment. Okay, and obviously this company is so busy that they have to spill over to external people like me to process these visa applications and essentially doing exactly what you're doing. I mean, I'm doing desktop research, searching UK companies' house, searching if it's Nigeria company check, and looking at surnames, fathers, cousins, brothers, Facebook profiles, Instagram profiles, and you're basically doing this and providing this report, which is for a political risk company, but ultimately for one of these governments in these tax haven countries. I've signed disclosures, I can't mention the countries or the company, but and I've thought about this, that you have these waves of companies, right, or people applying for citizenship by investment in these obscure countries.
Cyprus, Malta, Croatia.
But then obviously you have this value chain of corruption essentially, and I'm obviously part of it actually, by producing these reports where you give a political, a risk, is this person dodgy, or a scale of 1 to dodgy. What should this government do, and whatever happens. But it goes. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it goes, I think, a lot deeper. I think you're kind of at the tip of something that can go through to, homeland security kind of home affairs. I mean, who's applying for investment passports, and I just think there's a lot more that we could try and go, trace this to this company.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bernard, Albert also, and can everyone please, on your phones, introduce yourself before you comment? Where's the question? Thanks.
So I'm Bernard, and my name is I wanted to ask, you ended with Matthews, right? And I wondered if you wanted to maybe elaborate on that, because it seemed like that was obviously a very public South African figure in the story. And obviously in the close links, I didn't read the whole page, but the close links to the Northern Cape legislature, or part of it, an active political figure. So, whereas these other figures are, obviously obscure, and they kind of hide, and you don't really know where they're located. And I think part of your argument is really about the kind of global geography of this. These are sort of touchstone here, and I'm curious what how this, also in relation to what Claire was saying, how this links kind of public and private, and So what are your thoughts on that? Or can you say a little more? And then relatedly, I was kind of interested in your comments about the mine and the township, right? And I don't know much about Kimberley and Kimberley's history, but you sort of said anybody with knowledge of South Africa or Kimberley would know that that this is not a space in which there could be any kind of viable investment. And even a Google search that could be done from anywhere would show that there's not really a viable mine there right now, or anything resembling that. So I'm curious about the way that ignorance works in the analysis, and even in a sense, not even ignorance of place, not being in South Africa, not knowing the local conditions, but even ignorance in a sense of, of these technologies of Google Maps or Google Earth or whatever, that would allow you to do a simple thing and find out that actually there's nothing there. So I guess both questions here are related to geography in some fundamental way. Although the first one's about public and private.
I'd like to answer both these questions now. I want to start with the question or the comment by Claire. I'll see you later. By Claire on Marikana and Lonmin, and that's precisely the point. The Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, they show that in the sort of more and more neoliberalized world, this unfettered business investment and money making is able to function. So I've done research and written on Zambian copper mines. Zambian copper mines were denationalized and privatized, and under pressure from the World Bank, the whole Zambian mining structure was structured in such a way that money could be pumped in very easily, but also just as easily taken out. So you had the company called Luancha Copper Mines, which from one day to the next fired all of its employees, 14,000 people on the street from one day to the next. And I tried to follow this, where this company was, and it was registered partly in Amsterdam, and then it was registered in Luxembourg. And then the Zambian Congress of Trade Unions tried to follow this, but they didn't have the money to do this. So this gets back to the question that Lisa brought forward earlier on: how can you control this? We need a strong state. We need strong international agreements, and a gutted state which is unable, which might want to prosecute, which might want to follow through on things, but does not have the finances anymore to employ people to do this properly. And in the world in which it's all been outsourced to people like Claire, it's a problem. So we've gone through a whole phase in which the state is supposed to be mean and lean, but that just means that there's tons and tons of opportunity for companies. And yes, Anglo-American, any company, because people get instructed by shareholders, make a profit, get that share up. Then on Matthews, that really surprised me. And it's also problematic. It's also problematic. I discovered now when I was giving this lecture that this is going to be recorded, which I find fairly problematic.
It's not inevitable. We don't have to.
Oh, well, anyway, it's out there already. So the problem is that you sort of see that in the Northern Cape, the scale of corruption under John Block is just so phenomenal. The collapse of Alex Core in Alexander Bay mining, the collapse of Kimberley itself, the complete collapse, and the way in which the party has become the state and is basically just milking the province. It's just incredible. Now the mine in the township, this is the thing, is that the people who were involved in setting up the autoscopia idea, in the late 1990s, they set up another company which is going to be mining St. Augustine's. Now, in Kimberley itself, there are 5 kimberlite pipes. The most famous one is the Big Hole, but there are little ones around it as well. And each kimberlite pipe has a little bit of diamond in them, but nothing as spectacular as Kimberley. And similar people to this were peddling St. Augustine's, and they got big money from Australia investing in there. And there are a couple of other small kimberlite pipes in Kimberley, and I'm just waiting, and I keep watching the net for when these mines are going to come, be starting to be peddled. Because what happens is, and that's what I find interesting, is that there are families who are basically impoverished elite in Kimberley. So they were big during the mining boom, and they became impoverished. The rich ones have pissed off to America, Australia, Canada, or doctors and lawyers in Joburg and Cape Town. And what's left over is the big house and the family inside, but they have local knowledge. So they know that under the Bowling Green, no joke, the Bowling Green rolbal in Kimberley, there is a mine which was worked in the 1890s. So You know, with that kind of knowledge, you could go to the Afrikaner library, you can build up a dossier, and you can create Mystic Pearl 197, and you can start peddling amongst companies. And then because you have connections with somebody like Matthews, we say, we're really close to people with power, and they are. And the guys with power get kickback on this, of course. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Albert?
Very
Then
quick-
Susan. Yeah.
very quick comment.
No, Jochen. Actually.
And Susie's question. Why these people invest, and partly Bernard also raised that. And I think there's an anthropological answer to this. That it's going to do with the rugby. You trust your mates. There's that kind of bonding there. And that you don't expect your fellow rugby player to betray you. And I think that may be, I'm surmising now, but that may be at the back of it.
No, I think you're 100% right.
Okay. Susie, in a second, but let me, Jochen's has been waiting for a long time, we will come back.
So about Jurgens,
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Jurgens.
Jurgens. Yeah.
So I have two quick questions, and you kind of touched on both. First one is, obviously this is morally very wrong, I think it's very clear to everyone in the room that it's a more ethical creature. But I want to know, because a lot of the actions are legal, or like sanctioned under the state, but have any laws been broken? And if laws have been broken, can a criminal case be brought against these people? And if so, why hasn't it happened? Was there an attempt, or has these attempts failed? Like, why are they getting away with it in essence, is what I want to know. And the other thing that I want to know is, if you touched upon it in the paper, is there seems to be a lot of practices of legitimization going on, a lot of ways in which the company tries to legitimize themselves. And what I find interesting is their paper trail seems to put a lot of effort in making things look official, legitimate. Their papers look what you would find in other books. They kind of mimic the same structure, same styles. But I think to everyone like sitting here, all the young people, and I wonder if all the people are aware of it, their online presence just looks scammy. Like, I've seen so many scam profiles in my life just being on the internet, like as a teenager, like scam profiles.
I don't want to know about your youth as a teenager. Thank you very much.
I think if you grow up on the internet, you're so aware of what a scam profile looks like. But I wonder, and I'm surprised that they do so much effort with their paper trail, or down trail. They do effort with the paper trail with actually doing these reports, but their online profile is so obviously a scam. I'm wondering why, if, kind of like what processes of legitimization is going on, and if you touch upon how they legitimize themselves, or try to legitimize themselves.
Okay.
Can we, because we're moving towards the last stage of the seminar, those who have not asked any questions or comments, please do now. Susie will give you a chance just before, but I'd like to just open it up to, yes, but others too. Yeah, you've been waiting for a long time. Sorry, guys. Okay, so yes, and any others? Okay.
Hi, thanks. I'm Jonathan. I'm a postdoc at LEAP. So I think that this is fascinating to think of this kind of historian set of toolkits, but the internet is your archive, right? And that is like, I don't know, feels like an infinite archive with the historian set of tools. And I wondered, as you were kind of undertaking this, did you feel like, I don't know, the sets of tools and methods that are kind of most familiar to you were just kind of easily put to work to the internet as the archive? Were there, I don't know, tools or methods or things that you would wish for to deal with the internet? I guess the kind of question is, how does the internet as an archive hold up to the kind of historian's toolkit immediately?
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions, anyone? Comments? Susan?
Well, just a thought, I mean, what Jerry said is very interesting, that growing up, he learned practically to identify probable scams. I mean, hopefully is correct for many people, but I suppose I mean, I'm late to the party, but I've been fascinated. I believe there's a lot of new research now in relation, for example, to the rise of Trumpism in the United States about the collapse, the belief that we grew up with in your schooling, in your university training. You tend to learn that certain sources, certain newspapers, certain encyclopedias, etc., are authoritative sources of truth, or at least reliable facts. But apparently this is really collapsing now. Yeah. So that people no longer go to the New York Times or the BBC or whatever. I mean, in fact, they openly, confidently distrust these reports. So if that happens, then the internet's an absolute jungle, and it's So maybe these. I mean, I know people who personally been scammed in various kinds of scams and lost a lot of money. But I'm not sure. The state is the answer because our state is also scam. I mean, with PPE, for example, companies tendered for equipment, but it's only when the journalists went along and looked and found out that was actually a hairdresser or whatever. So I don't think the state is going to protect them, not in this country.
Okay.
Nobody else? Final chance?
So I'm just gonna second the second Jurgens with that. It's easy. You just see someone request to follow you, click on the account. If they have very few posts and if they have very few followers, click on it, even just one of their followers, and you'll see it's a fake account immediately because there's a certain look, and it's so like to a point where you're kind of scam proof because you know how it looks. And people joke a lot about popular accounts when they post a picture or anything. The scammers are at the top. Like, hi, the first person to direct message me the word depressed in capital letters is eligible for my Bitcoin like discount thing. You like to joke, and people joke about it. It's so obvious, and like you think no one's actually gonna send depressed.
But have you watched Tinder Swindler?
Tinder Swindler.
It's not that obvious. He wants to pull them out. Who has done one?
Yeah, he did a good job though. He did a good job.
You should make a documentary like Tinder Swindler.
Yes.
Except with this company. And interview the people who got to go out and show that.
Lisa.
I think my bit is more of a comment than anything. It's just also these ideas of responsibleized citizenship. We should go research, and oftentimes, especially with EIAs and HIAs and online research, oftentimes when people no longer want to see things, they take it down. And the inability to actually track it also makes it very difficult to establish these things. But just the idea that we should know enough about company regulation to know that this isn't a company. I think that expectation of knowledge is set far too high, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Jürgen, as far as I can see, your question is a very good one. No laws have been broken officially, not in Australia, because it's not an Australian company. Not in the Seychelles, because there was a company, there was money going in and money going out. We don't give a shit what happens. We had a company. It's not our jurisdiction. Yeah, sure, there's a signed contract, but it's signed with somebody in Panama for a company which is supposed to be registered in Australia, but isn't registered in Australia. It's registered in the Seychelles, so it's not under our jurisdiction. If there's laws that have been broken, there would be laws that would have been broken in terms of tax evasion. So GARC investments and investments by Craig into GARC investments and Renford Consultants and so forth. Why, if this person is a legal person living in this beautiful country known as Australia, be transferring all his money to the Bahamas, the British Virgin Islands, and other dodgy places. And hopefully he does get to pay tax on his money. Practice of legitimation. Yes, I agree with you completely. I mean, the Instagram account, the Twitter account, that is, even for an old fogey like myself, I can see, you know, you should have looked a little bit better. But the Gilmar Corporation website, which was taken down, and which you can find back on the Wayback Machine, that looks indistinguishable from any other junior mining company. Any other junior mining company has the same kind of nonsense in it. Hi, we are Jürgen Mining Incorporated. We are developing Simonsberg as a new copper deposit in South Africa, hitherto undiscovered. These are our board of trustees. These are our investments. Read our environmental impact assessment. Read our such and such. Here are the links to the South African government. Here we are registered and we are working together with Black Empowerment Company known as Mystic Pearl 3022. It's indistinguishable. At least I would say so, but maybe I'm horribly wrong. The internet, Jonathan, the internet is not an archive. The internet is a source. It's not an archive. An archive is sources which have been brought together, which have been organized, structured, weeded out, cleaned, and presented with registers so that you can find out what the information is that you're looking for. The internet is just a humongous jumble of information. And as Susie says, a lot of that information is utter crap. And some of it's true. And it's true that, you know, in a situation where we do not have proper schooling, if people do not get taught from an early age to distinguish right from wrong, I mean, I'm amazed that in the Netherlands, for instance, the people who didn't believe in COVID and Corona, it's just enormous.
Yeah.
Or the idea that the people governing the Netherlands are reptiles. Is it, eh?
Oh.
What's that? Sorry?
That's not true.
No, but it's you know, but it gets back to the situation about scamming, and I think that what Albert says, you know, the scam is the one that you want to believe.
Yeah.
The scam is the one you want to believe. It's like, you know, when you're in love with somebody who is not in love with you. You know, you think, ooh, they texted me a message. JB, piss off, leave me alone. You know, they're saying that, but actually, you know, this is tongue in cheek, you know, because it was a smiley. So you send back a smiley and you get a grumpy face back or something like that. You know, you're taken. So you believe what you want to believe. And if you play on that, and it's true, and that's what I wanted to say about, that's the title, Ruggerbuggers. Because those with whom you transgress particular social norms and boundaries with are the ones you trust, and the ones you will be with. And then they screw you. Yeah.
Yeah, on that note.
Yeah.